Lee and Joe seemed like an ordinary middle-class couple. They had 3 lovely daughters and lived in a spacious 3-story house. To their neighbors, they were a picture-perfect family, but everything changed after their eldest daughter, Jane, mysteriously drowned shortly after her 15th birthday. People sympathized with them, believing it was just a tragic accident. Yet, soon after, their second daughter, Ching, also died suddenly in her sleep. This time, the neighborhood began to whisper. How could one family be so unlucky? 2 daughters gone like this. The police investigated, but they found nothing suspicious. Both deaths were ruled as accidents, and the case was closed. Life went on, or so it seemed. Yan, the youngest daughter, had just turned 14. Since her sister's deaths, the house had become cold and quiet. Her parents, especially, were acting strange. Lee often stayed up late, locked in his study, while Joe's gaze had turned distant and unsettling. Yan could feel their eyes on her constantly, like they were watching her every move. There were whispers at night. Late one evening, unable to sleep, Yan crept down the stairs. She froze when she heard her parents talking in low voices. She has to be ready by next month, Lee said, his voice cold and serious. She's only 14, Joe replied, hesitating, but Lee cut her off. We've already sacrificed 2 daughters. The Ghost Priesthood's prophecy is clear. Only when all 3 are offered will we receive the blessing of eternal life. Yan's blood ran cold. Her heart felt heavy as her body trembled. She didn't dare move, clinging to the staircase as she tried to process what she had just heard. Her parents had sacrificed Jane and Ching, and now they planned to do the same to her. The next day, while her parents were out, Yan knew she had to find out the truth. Her hands shook as she snuck into her parents' bedroom, a place she had always avoided. She opened drawers, searched through cabinets, and finally, at the back of the closet, found an old black iron box. Inside were ancient books, their pages yellowed and worn. The covers were covered in strange symbols, nothing Yan had ever seen before. She opened one of the books, flipping through pages filled with rituals and ceremonies. It described how to communicate with the dead, to summon dark forces in exchange for power and eternal life. One passage stood out. Asterisk, asterisk, the Ghost Priesthood, asterisk, asterisk. It was an ancient cult that worshipped spirits and believed in offering the souls of young girls to gain immortality. As she continued reading, something fell from the book, a photograph. Yan stared at it, horrified. It was Jane and Ching, lying on a stone altar, their bodies pierced with daggers. Blood soaked the altar beneath them. Their faces were twisted in pain, their eyes wide open, as if they had seen something unimaginable in their final moments. Yan couldn't breathe. Her sisters had been murdered, not by accident, but as part of a twisted ritual, and now she was next. In the following days, Yan pretended nothing was wrong. She played along, knowing that if her parents suspected anything, it would all be over. But inside, she was planning her escape. She began packing a small bag in secret, gathering clothes and any money she could find. Every night, she rehearsed her plan to slip out unnoticed. But her parents seemed to be watching her more closely than ever. Every time she tried to make a call, Joe appeared, asking questions. It felt like the walls were closing in. She was trapped. One evening, after a strange family gathering, Yan found herself waiting in a side room. The house was filled with quiet murmurs from the cult members gathered downstairs. Growing restless, she wandered the halls and overheard 2 members talking in hushed tones. Lee's already given all his money to the Ghost Priesthood, one man said quietly. He's even ready to sacrifice his youngest daughter next week. That's true devotion. The other man responded, Yeah, we all had to give everything. It's the only way to purify our souls. Money, family, everything must be given to the spirits if we want to achieve eternal life. Yan's blood chilled again. Her parents hadn't just killed her sisters. They had given away all their money, their home, everything they owned to this cult. The Ghost Priesthood demanded total obedience, financially and emotionally. There was no escape once you were in, no turning back. Her heart pounded as she backed away from the door. Her parents had sacrificed everything, even her sisters, all for a twisted promise of immortality. It was time. Yan knew she had only a few days left. That night, While her parents were upstairs, she gathered her things and made her move. She slipped downstairs and quietly unlocked the side door, ready to make a run for it. But just as she reached for the handle, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. "Where do you think you're going, Jan?" Her father's voice was like ice in the dark. Jan turned slowly, her breath caught in her throat. Lee stood behind her, his face cold and cruel. "You really thought you could escape?" he sneered, tightening his grip. Jan struggled, but it was no use. Her parents didn't punish her right away. Instead, they locked her in her room, making sure she wouldn't run again. They were waiting for the right moment, for the ritual to begin. Finally, the day came, Jan's 15th birthday. That night, her parents brought her to the basement, a place she had never seen before. The stairs were steep and narrow, leading to a dark, damp room below. In the center was a large stone altar, stained with dried blood. The walls were covered in strange markings, illuminated only by the flickering light of dozens of candles. Joe and Lee tied Jan to the altar, their faces expressionless as they prepared for the ritual. Joe held a dagger in her hand, and Lee began chanting in a low, haunting voice. The air grew thick, and Jan could almost hear whispers, voices from beyond the grave. Just as the dagger hovered above her, the candles around the room flickered wildly. The fire swelled as if reacting to some unseen force. In the chaos, Jan saw her chance. She pulled free from the ropes and knocked over a candle, setting fire to the oil-soaked rags in the corner of the room. Flames spread rapidly. Lee and Joe panicked, trying to contain the fire, but it was too late. Jan ran through the door, the flames roaring behind her. Jan ran until she reached her neighbor's house, pounding on the door. Mrs. Jung opened it and gasped. Seeing Jan in such a state of fear, she immediately called the police. By the time the authorities arrived, the fire had spread through the basement. Lee and Joe had tried to flee, but they were caught hiding in the woods nearby. Both were arrested, but even as they were taken away, they continued muttering under their breath about the Ghost Priesthood and how the spirits would return for them. Weeks later, Jan found herself in a therapy center. The doctors told her that her mind had suffered deep trauma and that it would take a long time to heal. She sat by the window, staring blankly into the distance. Though she had escaped her parents and the cult, the shadows of the Ghost Priesthood still lingered in her mind. Somewhere she knew there were more followers, and one day they would come for her.